Well, hello everybody. My name is Scott. I'm Radon Mitigator in Virginia. I make videos for other radon mitigators, those looking to get in the business. And if you're a homeowner looking for a radon mitigator, a good place to go would be www.nrsv.org. It's right down here. It's the National Radon Safety Board. Just go to that site, plug in your zip code, and that'll pull up a list of certified radon professionals in your area. So what we're doing today is I am trying to redo a failed Zoom call that I had yesterday. I've been on a couple, but I've never hosted one till yesterday, and the recording did not go through. And anyway, I'm sure it's all my fault, but at any rate, I think you can keep the recordings if you're a paid member of Zoom, and I am not. And so at any rate, I put together this presentation for a friend of mine named Wade, and he's interested in getting into radon mitigation. I get those questions often, and so I put together a presentation, and it failed. And since everything's still fresh, I'm going to just redo it today with us. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to tell you the things that I wish I had known when I got into radon mitigation. Oh, I'm in my 10th year now, but 9 doing it, pretty much full time. And so I think this video will be helpful for you. All right, so here we go. So you got a van and a plan, huh? You want to become a radon mitigator. Well, this is how I run a profitable radon mitigation business. And so you have to determine a few things. One, is there a need, and do people recognize that need and want to pay for your services? And that's pretty much with any product or service. And so this fellow named Robert Collier, he was an OG back in marketing, probably, gosh, like 100 years ago or something. But he said something rather clever, and that's entering the conversation people are already having. But at any rate, you want to be congruent with what your market wants, whether they need it or not. So let's determine if there's a need. And so the best place to go ahead to good old Google. And so we're going to plug in EPA radon zone maps. And so my friend Wade's from North Carolina, so I went ahead and looked into North Carolina, and there we go. That is the actual map for the state of North Carolina from the EPA. It's all cockeyed. I'm not sure why, but so, zone 1 is red, and red is bad. Okay, and so orange is 2, and then zone 3 is the lesser amounts of radon likely to be present in homes. And so he is in a red area, an orange area, and so those are likely pretty good places to do business. And so I'm from Virginia, and so I am all up in the red. That northern part of Virginia, stretching from west to northeast, that happens to be where the Appalachian Mountains sort of run, and so we've got more than our fair share of radon. And just for kicks, I pulled up Tennessee, my neighbor there, and West Virginia. I kind of thought I'd see a little more Zone 1 action in West Virginia, being known for being so mountainous and all, but Zone 2 is still, you don't want to ignore that. But also for kicks, I pulled up Maine, and just eyeballing it, gosh, Maine is well over 90% Zone 1 red. But it kind of goes, this kind of flows into, we know there's a need, but is there a desire? Is there a market? Those counties in Maine, they're huge, right? Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're populated full of people wanting radon mitigation. I suspect that those big counties, as you drift towards the north, they're probably pretty sparsely populated. And so I don't know. I haven't studied on Maine enough, but this is just something for you to consider when you're thinking about getting into the radon mitigation business. So in Virginia, North Carolina, where Wade will be operating and I currently operate, is there a need? Affirmative. We know this. So hey, the people need it, but do they want it? And so a good place to go is back to our good old friend Google. Don't be afraid of Google. You can find out anything you want to between Google and YouTube. I've gotten in all sorts of things I probably shouldn't have, fixing furnaces and parts on the car and whatever. But at any rate, so I just plugged in how many people are searching for radon mitigators in in Greensboro. And so down at the bottom left, you'll see people also ask, how common is radon in North Carolina? What percentage of radon, homes have radon? How often is radon found in homes? So we're going to proceed there. And so what that prompts right there is, excuse me, got to power up. So, that's going to prompt press releases and articles to come out. And so that kind of further, strengthens our thesis there. But also a keyword search, and this is kind of a ninja thing, especially that marketers use to determine, how to sell their products. And so there's keyword search tools, and the one that I'm thinking of, I think it's called Keyword Search or something along those lines, and it's $97 a month. So of course there's freebie versions of everything out there, but you do get what you pay for. So we found a free keyword search tool here, and so we're going to try it out. And so I plugged in radon mitigators in Greensboro, North Carolina, and here's what I got. I didn't show Greensboro, but what we are seeing are a bunch of clicks. And again, I have no idea, what the span of these clicks is. If it's 1 week, 1 month, a year, I don't know. But let's assume it's a year. Well, you got the lowest number is 1,600 clicks per year. So, we're into 4 figures right there. So anyway, take that for what you will. It's just sort of part of building your case when you get into this. So another one is, hey, are there other people doing it? And that right there is pretty powerful, because it's tough to be a pioneer. I learned from this guy named Russell Brunson, a big marketing guy, and he said the definition of pioneer, and I think he got it from somebody else, but is a guy lying face down in the dirt with arrows in his back. That's a pioneer. So if other folks are already doing it, they've kind of already cleared the way for you, and you can determine if there's room in the mix for you as well. So Google, are there other radon mitigators in my area? So that's a good way to do it. Also, another way is to go directly to these sites for certification, like the ones I just mentioned at the beginning of the video. So you got National Radon Safety Board, and you got ARST. That's a mouthful right there, American Association of Radon Scientists and Technologists. But there's the NRSB website that I always tell people to go to. And then look kind of in the center to the left, you got for consumers. So that's where I always tell people, go right here, find a certified radon professional. So, okay, we'll pull that up. And that's just like I said, enter your zip code, and it'll pull the certified radon professionals in your area. So that kind of gives you an idea of who's doing what, because not all the radon mitigators out there advertise on Google. So that's a good way to sort of get both sides of it and sort of put them both together. But also, too, to connect with other radon mitigators. It's lonely out here, and it's good to know who's your fellow radon mitigator. And so in your mind, you kind of think, well, that's my competition right there. Well, not necessarily. I mean, I've done my fair share of plumbing, and when I bump into another plumber at Lowe's or something, we talk. Hey, what are you getting into today? Oh man, I'm over in Plan A over in Radford. Oh, well, you better watch out for roots over there. Oh, I hear that. We're buddies, and we refer business to each other too. I've done that in radon mitigation. I'll tell you a little bit about that as we proceed. So as far as we're getting into my story, I sort of Forrest Gumped my way into the radon mitigation business. So here I'm thinking back on it, hindsight's 20/20. Sometimes better be lucky than good, and 90% of life is showing up. Here's what I did. Well, I sold a house, and so like so many of you out there, you sold a house and you found out about this thing called radon, and you got to treat it, and you got to pay this guy to come in. And so if you watch my videos out there in YouTube land, sometimes I talk about how a lot of my customers are not actually happy to see me because I've got to fix their radon problem in order for them to sell a house. And unfortunately, the new owners of that house get to reap the benefits of that radon system that the seller paid for. That's the way the ball has been bouncing in my area for quite some time. So anyway, I sold a house. It failed a radon test. I found out about this thing called radon, and I saw how the system was put in, and I had a plumbing background. I said, you know what, I think I could do that if I put my mind to it. So, but what I found out is that radon is one of the big 3 contingencies on all real estate contracts in my area. So you got home inspection, you got pest and termite, and I think you have to look into those for the banks. And then you got radon. All right, and so when a person is buying a house and the realtor says, okay, cool, we got, the price is right and you want to do this other stuff, do you want a radon test? So there are 3 options for a person looking into, when presented with radon. So, you got, well, what is radon? No, that's boogeyman stuff. Or, yes, I do. So I created this flow chart really for a realtor's presentation to demonstrate to them how I can be of service to them. So if you look at the flow chart right there to the left, what is radon? I say, hey, send your clients this link. And I explain what radon's all about and how I get it out of houses. And so that kind of helps the realtor. It takes a load off their plate, or crap, my cat wants in. And we're back. So what I did was I gave this realtor's demonstration, and so down at the bottom where it says send my link to your clients, it helps. It takes the load, it takes the responsibility and liability off the realtors when trying to explain radon. So I'm right there explaining how I get it out of houses and what it's all about. And so over to no, well, there's not really many options for that. And so yes. So if the home tests under 4 picocuries, that's the EPA recommended action level, the issue is usually dropped. But if the home tests above it, well, that brings me back into this sort of decision tree, if you will. And so I have them send the link of my introduction to radon to those folks to educate them, and ideally I get the job. So in our search to determine if there's a market for our service, we're talking about real estate and realtors. Well, being that realtors are conducting all these real estate transactions, should we talk to them? Yes, definitely. So, look at what realtors have to do. So in order for realtors to solve and overcome the multitude of challenges when selling homes, they're not necessarily asking how, but who. And so look what all the realtors, look who all they have to know to solve all these problems, right? Well, the whole point of this is, wow, it just sort of keeps going and going, doesn't it? So a realtor is highly dependent upon the strength of their Rolodex. So what I want to be to a realtor, why I focus so much on that industry, is when they're dealing with these 90 other things, well, when the subject of radon comes up, I want them to have an image of me in their mind and a big check mark. Scott's got that. I don't need to worry about that. I need to worry about all this other stuff. And it sort of falls into line with this saying by this fellow named Zig Ziglar. You can get everything you want by helping other people get everything they want. So that's sort of my mentality right there when it comes to radon and realtors. After all is said and done, so I would highly recommend having a conversation with seasoned or experienced realtors or brokers. Not that new realtors aren't worth talking to, but you need the experience, right, to determine this decision, because, well, they have the finger on the pulse of what's going on in the housing market. Radon's in houses, so it makes sense to me. When you do have these conversations with these realtors, and they're not hard to find. I mean, you go to that Italian restaurant and you see those real estate guides, and you see the same faces on them for the past 10 years. Call that guy or gal right there. They're going to be able to tell you what's what. And so I asked them, you want to focus on numbers. We're trying to get data, not feelings so much, because realtors have the greatest war stories ever. They're probably all going to say, yeah, I've encountered radon. There's that $500,000 house that I almost didn't get sold because we couldn't get the radon problem licked, and we had to call in some guy from 2 hours away to come do it. Well, you don't want to hear a whole lot of those stories. So ask for numbers. And so here's a script for you. Hi, Jackie. First, I'm not selling anything here. What I want to know is, how often does radon mitigation come up in your real estate transactions? And of course, you tell them the truth, which is that you're considering getting into the industry. And because that's one thing right there. All the realtors say, yeah, we need one, but not based off of this one story in the past 2 years. We want to hear, yes, we encounter it all the time, and yes, we have a need for dependable radon mitigators. So tactfully press for numbers, and now no one's half the battle, right? And so based upon the EPA radon zone maps, you now know how you are situated in the area you intend to operate. And so we've got proof that there's a market for radon mitigators based upon, well, presence of radon mitigators. Check in with the 2 sites there for certification. And then you got Google articles and press releases and keyword searches. So between all that stuff right there, with the conversations with realtors, we know we're getting warm. And so now we're going to kind of get into basically the two things that I used to get into it, the presence of other radon mitigators and conversation with realtors. So the conversation with the realtors that I had was, heck yeah, we need radon mitigators. We only got like one guy and he only shows up when he feels like it. And incidentally, I became friends with that guy. That guy, he's forgotten more about radon than I'll ever know. He's a great guy. He was overworked, overloaded, and he's getting older. He's approaching retirement as well. And so in their eyes, the realtor's eyes or customer's eyes, sometimes he didn't show up as much as they'd like him to, or he'd reschedule, or no show at all. Whatever his case was, it was advantageous for me to get in because the demand was there and there wasn't much supply as far as, dependable mitigators getting out there fixing houses. All right, so let's get you street legal, right? We need to do some stuff in order to mitigate houses. So there's two sides to the radon business. You got mitigation and measurement. And so what we're doing right there, ideally if you're a mitigator, you want to be certified in both mitigation and measurement. And then a lot of home inspectors are, they're certified in measurement. It's definitely a nice arrow to have in your quiver if you're a home inspector to be able to offer that service. And then lab technicians are certified in measurement. All right, and so where do you get certified? The two places that I know of off the top of my head are National Radon Safety Board and ARST. And so what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to look into getting licensed, getting certified, and getting insured. So based upon where you're operating, whatever state, you need to find out, where your general contracting board is. So my buddy Wade's in North Carolina, so I went back to Googled, practically wrote it out for me. North Carolina, Board for General Contractors took me to the site that ends in .org, and so from there, that's where it's up to you. You're going to need to find out what you can and can't do. So licensure in your state will determine if, one, either you need to have to go work for somebody else, or two, if you can just hit the ground running. So you're looking for, is there such a thing as a radon contractor in my state? Because as far as the trades, we're the new kids on the block, right? With electrical and plumbing, plumbing dates back 2,000 years, electrical's, about 150 years. And so radon is like 20, 30, 40 years. So a lot of folks don't know what to do with us. All right, so go there, find out what you need to do. And so now we're looking into certification now. And so we've got our two sites there, National Radon Safety Board and ARST. And that's going to lead us right into insurance. So at those two sites, coincidentally, they are good pathways to get your liability insurance. So if you roll up into State Farm, they're not going to know what to do with you. Radon liability insurance is a special breed of animal, and these two guys, NRSB and ARST, they claim to be able to get you a discounted version of insurance, but whatever, it is still expensive to me. But anyway, that's where I went to get mine. All right, so we're moving right along. So we got licensure, certification, insured, and so we covered just a few more things. All right, how are you going to cash those checks? Well, so based on my observations, most businesses are owned and operate on a legal entity other than a sole proprietorship. So I operate under an LLC. That's a pretty good one, but don't just do that because I do that. You might want to do some sort of corporation, and that's up to you. But at any rate, you kind of go to the same place to obtain those things in your state. So for Wade, I looked up his, and so it took me right here to this site, enzin.gov. I'm going to tell you about something called a fictitious name, or doing business as. So Wade, we grew up in Martinsville, Virginia together, and so I called him Wade the Duck. There was this cartoon character named Wade the Duck. So I called Wade the Duck. And so I came up with his name for him, Duckman LLC, doing business as Wadeco Radon Removers. And so Right there you see the business entity name, and you see this thing. It sounds sinister, fictitious name, but it's legitimately what, it's not a bad thing. It's actually, you know, you in your state corporation and commission, this is the one for Virginia. I believe I obtained both of those names from them. It was a couple of years ago, but I'm pretty darn sure that's where we did it. So you can do it both at the same place. But the point of all this is you are creating a new entity. And you know, another example of this business entity name versus fictitious name. For instance, say there's a McDonald's franchise in your area. Well, even though it says McDonald's, the folks that own it might have their entity named like MCD LLC or something like that. But you recognize it as McDonald's. So I think I've drilled that point home enough at this point. So of course, to start an LLC or a corporation, you know, you got the Google. You can study YouTube videos on it. And you can pay an attorney to do it. It's one of the lesser cost things that they charge for. And you can use a service such as LegalZoom to do it. So at any rate, you've created an entity. Congratulations. There's a little follow through to that. So just as we have social security numbers, your entity will need its own special number known as an EIN, an entity identification number. And where do we go for that? Well, you can Google it, and hey, it brought up the IRS. Now, don't get scared of that. A lot of folks, when they think of IRS, they envision red tape and complications and bureaucracy. This one thing, when I created the EIN for mine, it was simple and it was quick. So don't let that fool you. That's where you go to get that done. And of course, you can look up how to do that. And all right, so we are really rolling along here. So we got that fictitious name. Got Wade covered. I've named his business for him. So tax ID, and look at us just rolling along here. So now you can go to the bank with just those four, with 4, 5, and 6. That's what the bank's looking for to open up your new checking account, so you can cash those checks. On your way to the bank, you don't want to forget to stop by and pick up your business license in your community. So that can be obtained at the Commissioner of Revenue at your local clerk's office. And that's not very expensive, but it is something you're going to need to do. All right. All right, so you've got the equipment, know-how, and overhead worked out. I imagine you had that when you found this video. And you got a helper and a payment plan structured. So with regards to my helper, I pay him by the job, and it's $10.99. And so I don't know, that's something you're going to need to determine if it's W-2 or if you're going to pay them by the hour, or if you're even going to have a helper at all. I worked without a helper for, gosh, like 6, 7 years. And the best thing I did was find my helper. And yes, I want to strangle him a lot, but he gets me my time back. For example, so if I go out and do a job with that helper and we get out by lunchtime, I've gone out after that and looked at 4 more jobs and locked them all down. So that's an excellent use of my time, and I hope that helps you out right there. Invoice software. So this right here is really valuable, and I use something called Invoice to Go. I drove all the way up to New Jersey to learn some of these things that I'm teaching you about, including Invoice to Go. So there it is right there. It is Invoice with the number 2 Go. And I don't even use half the things that it can offer you, such as payroll, but estimates and invoices. And it keeps it digitized. You can put pictures on there, which I'll get to that here in a little bit. That's really key. Pictures of before with a drawing of what you're going to do, and then pictures of afterwards. And then of course you have them approve these estimates, and they can put deposits down. You need an invoice software, and this is the one that I got turned on to, and it's been a lifesaver for me. You can use it on your phone as well as the computer, and they sync up. So I mean, I take this in the field all the time. I don't even have an iPad. The fellow up in New Jersey that ought to be teaching this class, he turned me onto it, and he uses an iPad, and it works great. But I'm getting away with it with just a regular old iPhone. All right, so all this stuff is necessary. And by the way, I covered the worst first, and I do that intentionally. And luckily, that's how radon jobs are structured. The way they force you to do the worst stuff first, and the job gets easier towards the end. That's the way I wanted to structure this presentation. Now we get to the good part, and that is Michael Bolton dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. I don't know if there's any Saturday Night Live fans out there. So anyway, we want to advertise the business. You know, this whole point of this is how I run a profitable radon business, and I enjoy advertising it, and I have a blast doing it. And it does not cost me an arm and a leg. It hardly costs me anything at all. So let's see. Website, everybody knows you need a website. I don't really need to go into that. And the average Joe can create a website now with these click and drag websites that are out now. The ones that come to mind are Wix and either Square or Squarespace, something like that. But they're a piece of cake now. And also the email thing, if you see that, my buddy Wade, I told him, you know, there are email snobs out there that will judge you. You put a business card out with the name of your business and your email says wade@aol.com. That's not going to fly for a lot of people. You get judged on your appearances and little things all the time, and those things add up, and that's just the way it is out there. All right, so what you want to do is once you get your website done, you want to follow through and register it with Google. Another thing I learned from my New Jersey buddy, Gentleman Jim. And when he told me about that, I said, I am on Google, but I was on Google organically. And so you follow through and get it registered. And so right there, I just pulled up a YouTube video on how to do that. And also, I believe those are reviews, and that's another benefit of being on Google. Reviews and testimonials are just so powerful. I mean, I experienced it today. But anyway, back to registering. I believe there's actually a little bit of paperwork too. I think they send you something to fill out and then you send it back, but it's not complicated at all. But do that, okay? And so why do you want to register with Google? Testimonials. And so back to today. Today's Saturday as I'm filming this. I stopped by today to see a customer, and she was floored that I stopped by on a Saturday. And I'm going to get to that stuff here in a little bit. What's ordinary to you will be extraordinary to your customers. Stopping by on a Saturday blew her mind, but to me, her house was on my way home from the gym, you know, and I showed up in uniform, by the way, in my van. I'll get to that here in a little bit. But what she said to me was, you are just like everything I read about in your reviews. I didn't know she'd seen my reviews. She said, you're punctual, you're courteous, etc. You know, and I don't want to brag, but I am telling you the truth on the exchange that I had today with that customer, and it was because of reviews. And so you want to also ask your customers to review you as well. I'll get to that here in a little bit. But anyway, so registering it with Google, you know, it's going to get you more legitimacy. So anyway, Google has this way of like creating a secondary web page for you, and you know, it turns out pretty cool. But because you're registered on Google, it's just sort of the cost of doing business, jumping through hoops. It gives you more legitimacy. Of course, the ratings and testimonials. It sets you up to do paid advertising in the future if you want to get into that. I don't currently do that, but my friend Gentleman Jim up in New Jersey, he utilizes this a lot, and I'm not going to get into that. I'm not really proficient in that area yet. But back to ratings and testimonials. If I haven't hammered that down enough, this is why you want to get registered on Google. Okay, set up a Facebook page or Meta, depending on what you want to call it these days. So there it is. If you look down at the bottom, it's free. And I didn't say this, but Vic DeLapp did. If you own a business and you're not on Facebook, you are stupid. And Vic DeLapp is famous in basically my golfing circle. You don't know him, but when he said that to me, that had a real impact on me because I wasn't on there at all at that point a few years back. Well, because it's free advertising. And at any rate, you know, I got on there and got to reconnect with, you know, all my friends. Like, gosh, Wade, the Zoom call I had with him yesterday, I haven't seen him live in person in 15 years. But at any rate, free advertising. Get on Facebook, do that. I'll show you a little bit about that here in a bit. All right, and you also want to set up a YouTube channel. And the purpose of the YouTube channel is for this example right here. It's utility. It's not so you can become a rock star or get famous. I use it as a tool for frequently asked questions. See, why I made the channel is for two reasons. One, I got stumped on some stuff and I figured other folks were getting stumped on stuff. So I made videos because I couldn't find them. So I was doing it to help out. But also, because I encountered so many things over and over again, I decided to document them. That way when somebody would ask, I'd be able to look at this video. You know, it's covered to somebody until you're blue in the face, but a video is going to communicate much more clear. And to have the customer's expectations in line with what you're going to provide for them, there's no better way than a video. And so whenever a situation comes up, I can send a video over to the customer, or a video link rather, and it totally explains it. Well, back to, it's for utility, we've covered that, and it's used to demonstrate to customers that you can solve their problem, and so you're documenting what you're already doing. So when you do win, I want you to make YouTube channels because you're documenting what you're already doing. You don't have to worry about creating content, You're documenting what you're already doing so that content creation will take care of itself. For example, as of right now, I've got 91 videos on YouTube. Some of them are actually good, but the whole point is when I started, I thought I would only need like 5 or 6. Really, I thought I would need like 5 or 6 and that would be it, and I'd be covered. But I keep finding stuff and or rabbit holes, right? Just like, I could dedicate a whole channel just to passive radon systems. If you've seen my videos, I've got like almost too many, but stuff keeps coming up and I'm like, well, I bet people want to know about this. So, and it helps me. It helps me help my customers. So when you make these videos, you are putting yourself in a position of authority, and that will help you simply close more sales, turn those leads into customers. But don't let that confuse you with that top one right there. Don't let it go to your head, your fame and fortune as a YouTube star. I sometimes had to put myself in check and remember, this is about the customer, it is not about me. And most importantly, they will bring about clarity while saving you time and preventing miscommunication. We've touched on that, but also this right here, if you have these videos in place, I can think of an example right now where it saved me half a day of my life. I did a job about an hour away and a customer was having some questions about her manometer, and I was able to send her a YouTube link to a video of me dealing with a manometer. The video is literally 1 minute and 12 seconds long, and she looked at the video, figured it out, and it saved me an hour one way to go look at a manometer. So this will save you service calls as well as create sales. All right, and so like I said, it's the best frequently asked tool you can have. Willie's proud of me. He always looks at me like he's proud of me. So it is the best frequently asked question tool you can have in your arsenal. All right, so we're going to go back to Facebook or Meta, back to the free advertising. So this right here, why you want to be on Facebook or Meta is, well, advertising and community building. So this example right here, I did this job for some folks that sell a lot of real estate, and right there I put the link to their real estate firm. So they're loving that, right? I'm showing, hey, the Hudson team sold a house, and here's where you can find them. Thanks for the work. I got all this from Jim. I want to try to give credit where credit's due. I didn't dream up all this stuff. This is a culmination of what I've learned myself through Hard Knocks and driving all the way up to New Jersey to talk with folks like Jim about. Anyway, I hope it all helps. This is exactly what he does, and it's working gangbusters for him, and it's working for me as well. And then validation. So, people use Facebook or Meta as a search engine, just like, YouTube and Google. So they see that you're active in the community. You got people, your friends and customers making comments. It all comes together and gels. And you can use the same content for Facebook that you use on YouTube and vice versa. So you can get both slices of those pies there with one shot. That's probably a lousy metaphor, but anyway, we're going to keep rolling on. All right, and oh, don't be another white van. For crying out loud, you better put a logo on that van. That's a mobile billboard. I mean, if I go to the grocery store, or, like I said, I went to the gym today, I drove my van. And also, you want to always be in uniform. My uniform is a red t-shirt. All right? So your van and your uniform, you are in character. I mean, think about if you want a chiropractor and you go to their website and you see a picture of the chiropractor and their family on the beach with everybody wearing white, like the people have been rocking out for the past 40 years. I want to see a picture of my chiropractor in a white lab coat with a stethoscope. I don't care if he doesn't use that stethoscope. You need to be in character. People's minds, your customers' minds, they have boxes for everything. And they want to see their service technician, in a vehicle with a name on it and a uniform. And your uniform doesn't have to be anything other than a t-shirt. And I've lost business by not doing that. I had a job a while back. It was like an hour away. My van's a gas guzzler. I have a Ford Focus that gets 1 million miles to the gallon. And I think this was before I started using a uniform. I drove all the way out there. And now I know. The guy sees a guy in a Ford Focus come up in jeans and a shirt or whatever. And he says, yeah, I can install your radon system. What? You just look like a guy off the street that took a wrong turn. Be in uniform. Drive a van or something that has your name on it. Whatever you spend on this will pay for itself time and time again. I mean, just by being on a job with your van with the name on it, your neighbors, the neighbors will come out and talk with you, and you will get more business. Please do that. Okay, man, we've covered a lot of ground. Look at all that stuff. Anybody out there a fan of The Sopranos? I don't know if you remember that dude. He was asleep right before he said that in that scene. But anyway, wowing your customers is not difficult. And I love this. I really do. And it's simple stuff. The stuff I'm getting ready to tell you is, you're going to say, duh, no kidding. But the trades are notorious for not doing this stuff. So call your folks back immediately, or they will call somebody else. You know how impatient you are? Well, your customers are just as impatient. They're going to go down the list till they get a voice on the phone. All right? And so once you do have a customer, immediately send them that link to your Intro to Radon video. This is what I did yesterday. A fella called in. I couldn't take his call because I was getting ready for Wade. And I responded to him immediately, told him when I'd call him back, and of course I called him back at that time, but I sent him that video link of me explaining radon and showing how I get it out of houses. Show up when you say you're going to show up. Duh, but you should, and the folks in the trades are notorious for not doing this. People value their time, big time, and confirm the appointment the day before. Here's another hard knocks lesson. I booked a job 2 days before I showed up, and it was on a Saturday near Christmas, and it was uphill both ways. But seriously, it was 2 days, right? I show up on a Saturday. There's already a radon system there. I knock on the door. What's going on, man? He said, you did not confirm your appointment. 2 days. You think I confirm my appointments now? You betcha I do. And so, at that time, I was mad. I thought he was a jerk for doing that. But if you stop and think about why people do what they do, well, I bet you that guy's been stood up a bunch before. And he just wanted to hedge his bets that somebody was going to come out and install a radon system. And all I had to do was confirm that a day before. So let people know you're on your way. I do that. But also if you're going to be late. It's not like 40 years ago you had to pull over to the side of the road and use a payphone. You can just text somebody you're going to be late. People love that. You can offset that as well. What I do is I tell folks I'm going to be there. I'm going to arrive with my helper between 8 and 8:30 a.m. So that gives me a half hour of wiggle room. And and more often than not, some of these jobs, the house is vacant. But if somebody's there, yeah, you better believe that I think that they've got their eye on a clock, whether they are or aren't. Customers appreciate that. So keep them in the loop if you're running late. Tactfully address COVID. At least consider that your customers have feelings one way or another about it. So when I show up, I say something like, "Hey, I'm happy to mask up. I have had both the shots and the booster." Sometimes they say, "I don't worry about it," or they say, "No, please mask up." So be prepared for that. It's time of making this video, it's a thing. Have a shoe strategy. To some customers, that's more important than COVID. Shoes are a big deal to a lot of customers, so have a shoe plan. They love the cover, the little disposable covers that you can put on, or be ready to pop up. All my shoes I can pop off quick and walk around in socks, or even grab slippers. I was talking with my buddy Wade about that yesterday. What they do is they use Crocs. So have a shoe strategy. And always be in uniform and arriving on your mobile billboard. Always sketch out what the system's going to look like. When a customer is there on site, I always do that, and I flip my phone over to them and show, hey, this is what it's going to look like. On an iPhone, you can draw that out, and if you don't know how, go to YouTube and figure that out. I mean, I've done it in front of people with iPhones. They're like, how'd you do that? It looks magical to a lot of people, and it's easy. And it impresses your customers, and you'll close more deals. So right here we got the exterior, the interior, and then of course you want your work to match up to that. But customers need to know, yeah, you're going to have this big thing on the side of your house that's about the size of a soccer ball, and some customers, some of this information might slip through the cracks. That's why you can't overly communicate what's going to happen. A lot of people don't dig radon systems the way they look. They want the functionality, but the fashion is very important to them. All right, so we sketched out how it's going to appear, and always get that testimonial. I can't emphasize that enough. In fact, I wish I had a slide to put in here on that, but I did that today 2 times. It's like walking down the street and seeing a $5 bill and not picking it up. Of course you're going to pick it up. Pick up testimonials and build them. My buddy Jim has, he had over 300, and that was like 2 or 3 years ago. So he's probably closing in on about 1,000 testimonials at this point. You can't have enough. Wow, look how far we've come. I believe that'll do it today. But at any rate, this video has run on quite long enough, and I hope I've addressed all of your questions. I'm sure I haven't gotten to everything, but I think I knocked out a whole lot here, and I hope you found value in it. If you did, by all means, smash that like button and consider subscribing. I drop lots of content out here for the Radon community. Doesn't cost you a dime, it means the world to me. Have a great day. See you in the next video. Bye.